Bonjour, bienvenue. My name is Nathalie Des Rosiers. Mon nom est Nathalie Des Rosiers, and I'm the MPP for Ottawa-Vanier. I first want to acknowledge that we are on Indigenous territory of the Mississauga of New Credit and of other Indigenous communities that have been on this land for thousands of years. What I'm discussing today is the Human Rights Code amendments that I will be tabling this afternoon. In my view, it is crucial for Ontario to have a robust, relevant, modern human rights framework to allow everyone to live without discrimination. Discrimination is a curse in our society. It robs people who suffer their dignity. It can be internalized. It robs society of talents and energy from those who remain silent. And it robs the one who contribute to discrimination of the enrichment of knowing and appreciating others. The human rights frameworks in Ontario is one that aims at educating the public and at offering some real possibility of restoring injustices. And it is particularly important at times such as this, when messages of hate, of rejection, of protecting our own first, are becoming part of the main discourse. La société ontarienne a besoin d'un environnement de justice qui soit adapté aux nouvelles formes de discrimination. Les amendements proposés reflètent les avancées dans la pensée sur les droits de la personne. Les avancées de la science, je propose un amendement pour inclure la discrimination génétique. Les nouvelles formes de racisme, je propose un amendement pour inclure le statut d'immigrant. L'accomplissement de recommandations passées, je recommande qu'on inclue la condition sociale comme un élément de discrimination et l'aboutissement d'une reconnaissance des conséquences néfastes de certaines pratiques informationnelles de la police dans le passé. So I'm proposing 4 new grounds of discrimination that reflect a new way of thinking of discrimination. First one that I recommend is the ability to tackle genetic discrimination. With the advancement of science, we all know that people are encouraged to take genetic testing to see whether they might have within their genes some predisposition for a certain disease. However, they are often prevented from undergoing that test because they are afraid that their insurance company, that their employer will ask about this information. So the bill proposes to eliminate this type of discrimination and also to protect the right to equal treatment without discrimination because of genetic characteristics that would include the right to equal treatment because a person refuses to undergo a genetic test or refuses to disclose or authorize the disclosure of the results of the genetic test. So I think it's important to recognize here that it's both a positive right and a negative right, the right to undergo the test and keep it for yourself, and also the right to say no to the obligation to take a test. This is particularly important for the Jewish community throughout Canada, and it's about time that we amend the Act to reflect this. The second ground of discrimination that I'm suggesting is immigration status, which means the status according to Canadian immigration law. More and more in my writing, I have people that come to me and say that they've been told that they could not apply for a certain type of housing because they are a refugee. Et je pense que c'est une des nouvelles formes de racisme où les gens ne demandent pas nécessairement, ne peuvent pas dire qu'ils ne veulent pas avoir ce type de personnes-là dans leur appartement, mais leur demandent leur statut d'immigration. Ça élimine, et je pense que ça crée des difficultés certaines pour un grand nombre de nos concitoyens et concitoyennes. The third ground that I want to put in is social condition. Social condition meaning a social and economic disadvantage resulting from employment status, source or level of income, housing status, including homelessness, level of education, and any other circumstances similar to those mentioned above. And I'm going to be happy to have with me a representative from the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, A.J. Witters and Yogi Acharya, that will expand a little bit on the importance of having a social condition. This is the result. This was a recommendation of long-standing recommendation that had been done in the past, among them by Justice Laforêt, when he reviewed the framework for human rights in Canada. It's also, I think, we expect that it would give the possibility to the Human Rights Commission to develop some good policies so people would know exactly when it is appropriate or inappropriate to ask about employment status or homelessness. We know of cases where homeless people that were entitled to have dental work would enter into a dentist office and be told to leave because the dentist did not want that type of clientele in their offices. So we are committed to ensuring that all people in Ontario have access to the services that they deserve. Et finalement, j'ai ici Noah Mendelson-Aviv, who will speak to that from the Canadian Civil Liberties Association. I also suggest that police records, discrimination on the basis of police records, be included in the Human Rights Code. Because people that have been charged or convictions with or without record suspensions are often discriminated against in their search for employment or indeed in their ability to access services. So I think there's a long history in Ontario of wanting to deal with this issue, and it's about time that we deal with it. I also want to note that in the audience I have Ryan Peck from the HIV/AIDS Legal Clinic, and I want to say to them, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much for joining us today on this day where we are striking to and deciding to do something about discrimination in Ontario, and the importance to have a legal framework that allow us to tackle it, to name it, and to deal with it. Alors, je vous remercie de votre attention. Je vais inviter AJ à venir vous adresser la parole, and then I'll be back for questions.
Hi, good morning. I'm speaking today on behalf of the Ontario Coalition Against Poverty, and we support this bill as a tool against discrimination against poor people. And I'm here speaking specifically around the social condition grounds in this bill. But first, I want to say that prohibiting discrimination on the basis of police records is also very significant for poor communities, as it's these communities that are typically over-policed and over-criminalized, and especially Black, Indigenous, and communities of color. Migrant communities are also disproportionately poor and commonly experience discrimination on the basis of their immigration status. We strongly support protections for people on the grounds of immigration status. There's a great deal of prejudice and discrimination against people on the grounds of their social condition. In OCAP, we routinely see examples of this. This is extremely detrimental in the lives of homeless people who are often treated as human refuse. The level of hatred of homeless people can be extreme and commonplace in Ontario. A recent Human Rights Commission of Ontario study found that 38% of respondents believe that police profiling or targeting the homeless people is sometimes justified simply because those people are homeless. Homeless people are kicked out of coffee shops and harassed by security guards and police, also only for being homeless. And just one example of how extreme the hatred of homeless people is that in the Sun newspaper online comments responding to an article by Sue-Ann Levy, some of those comments from last week contain statements as, quote, cull the bums and drug addicts and give them all hot shot, save on naloxone. So actively calling for the death of homeless people. And this manifests on a daily basis in the lives of homeless people. And in the city of Toronto, we see that hatred coming out around trying to build shelters where there's desperate need for shelter beds, and huge amounts of hatred come out in the form of NIMBYism, where people do not want homeless people who oftentimes have lived in that community for many years to find shelter in their neighborhoods. There's also a profound discrimination against people on social assistance. 20% of all Ontarians hold somewhat or very negative feelings towards people on social assistance, according to the Ontario Human Rights Commission study. And this was the second most negatively regarded group discussed in this study. 62% of all respondents in the study believed that it was understandable to be concerned about renting a housing unit to someone on social assistance. People on social assistance are often, and very unjustly, believed to be lazy and dishonest, acting as a social employment and housing barrier. We have seen homelessness skyrocket in Toronto in recent years and in many cities in this province. And this is because rents are going up and because the real spending dollars of social assistance has been lost over the past decades under multiple governments. Doug Ford's Conservative government has undertaken a review of social assistance, and many anti-poverty advocates across the province expect sweeping, regressive, and devastating changes to social assistance. And as a result, we expect homelessness to increase. So this bill, we think, will be a useful tool to protect poor people from discrimination and the rising homeless population from discrimination, as a remedy from discrimination when it occurs, and also as a way of hopefully discouraging and making it clear that the province doesn't tolerate this kind of hatred, prejudice, and discrimination. Making social condition and immigration status protected grounds could help positively change social attitudes and social climate. And as the minister said, these things, or the member of parliament said, these things are especially important right now. It's also important for our organization to be clear, though, that ending discrimination is really important. Ending discrimination against poor people is really important, but we also must end poverty. So we view this as an important step, but one step in a larger journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, AG. And now I'd like to invite Noah Mendes-Olavive from the Canadian Civil Liberties Association to speak more specifically about the discrimination on the basis of criminal records. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Nathalie. Thank you, everybody. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association is happy to be here in support of this bill, which addresses some serious gaps and indeed constitutional defects in the Ontario Human Rights Code. The purpose of the Human Rights Code is to protect the dignity and equality rights of individuals in a variety of settings by prohibiting discrimination by employers, landlords, store owners, and others. The Canadian Civil Liberties Association and other organizations, other individuals who seek equality know how critical a tool the code is to help marginalized individuals who may already face discrimination and disadvantage to gain opportunities and access to decent jobs and housing, to have free and full participation in the workplace and in other parts of society without additional burdens. The Human Rights Code is one of the most important legal tools to prevent discrimination both in the private and public sectors. For example, CCLA's challenge, our challenge of the sex education curriculum, is based in part on the prohibition against discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity in the Human Rights Code. And I should note that those grounds, sexual orientation and gender identity, were not in the original code. They too were amendments that were added in order to keep our code up to date, strong, relevant, and constitutional. The code, which prohibits discrimination, recognizes the inherent dignity, worth, and equality of every person and takes concrete action to limit pre-existing prejudice and stereotypes, stigma, disadvantage, and unfairness. And that's what this bill seeks to do, because our code is, in fact, out of date. There are people who face discrimination, who deal with stigma, who are treated unfairly and are not protected currently by the code. The code protects from discrimination on the basis of race and citizenship, But if someone applies for a position and is denied because their employer doesn't like refugees or immigrants, the code right now won't help them. Our code protects individuals from discrimination on the basis of disability, but it has not been updated to include a solution for a person denied a service or entry to a store because of their genetic characteristics. The code prohibits discrimination against people on the basis of family status, so it would protect or should protect a single mother if she tries to get housing and is denied. But no such protection is currently available to somebody who is economically vulnerable, perhaps someone who was homeless and is receiving social assistance and trying to get things on track, looking for work, trying to maintain health and mental health. And finally, the code protects individuals from discrimination on the basis of record of offenses, which means, as currently interpreted, that the code does not allow discrimination against a person who was convicted of an offense and later received a pardon or a record suspension, unless there is a bona fide job requirement related to that job. The stigma and prejudice that attach themselves to people who have been convicted, unfair decisions that are made, can get in the way of people trying to rehabilitate themselves, find work, and re-enter society. The Human Rights Code offers the person who was convicted and had a pardon protection and remedies. But no such protection currently exists for a person who had contact with the police, perhaps due to a suicide call or perhaps because charges were laid, even if those charges were laid in error and the police subsequently found the real offender. But we know that employers are risk-averse. Two people seeking the same position, the likelihood is that they will choose the person who does not have contact with police, even if those charges were proven untrue. People who have police records also deal with the same stigma and prejudice, and they too should have an opportunity to seek solutions if they are unfairly denied work, housing, or services. And we also cannot lose sight of the reality that the people most likely to have police records are those who are disproportionately policed, people who are racialized, Indigenous, have mental health issues, are homeless, or have some intersection of these and or other grounds. What this means in reality is that if a young black man is denied service or a job because of his police record, where there is no conviction, he faces a double or perhaps greater than that burden or disadvantage. The bill being tabled today is therefore critical for all the values that CCLA and so many others of us in Ontario stand for: equality, dignity, opportunity, and simple fairness. And it is that simple. And for this reason, we strongly support this bill. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. I'm available for questions.
Bonjour, Madame Des Rosiers.
Bonjour, comment allez-vous?
Ça va bien, merci. Parlez-nous vous en avez mentionné un peu dans votre circonscription, les réfugiés qui ont voulu avoir des logements. Parlez-nous de ce que vous avez entendu.
Bien, souvent, ce qui arrive, c'est que les réfugiés arrivent et se présentent devant un propriétaire qui leur demande, même si ce n'est pas vraiment pertinent, leur demande leur statut d'immigrant. C'est pertinent de demander la façon dont les gens vont payer leur loyer, mais pas de leur demander particulièrement leur statut d'immigrant. Et c'est ce qui fait que les réfugiés ont plus de difficultés à se trouver un logement que les gens qui sont soit des résidents permanents ou des citoyens canadiens.
Est-ce que vous n'avez pas présenté un projet de loi similaire la dernière fois? Oui,
je représente le projet de loi qui avait été adopté en deuxième lecture par tous les qui devaient s'en aller en comité et ça avait été unanime. Alors, je m'attends peut-être à ce que avoir le même traitement, là, si possible, pour ce projet de loi. Ça ne coûte rien d'amender le Code des droits de la personne, mais ça permet à la Commission des droits de la personne de continuer son travail d'éducation et de permettre à certains groupes d'être mieux compris dans notre société.
Et vous pensez qu'il y a certaines personnes qui se font refuser, en fait, vous l'avez vu peut-être à CCLA, mais des gens qui se font refuser des services à cause de leur condition sociale?
Je pense il y a plusieurs causes qui ont déjà été identifiées. La cause du dentiste, entre autres, là, où la personne s'est fait débouter devant la commission parce que la condition sociale n'était pas inscrite dans le code. C'était une recommandation du commissaire Laforêt il y a de ça assez longtemps pour que l'ensemble des conditions de discrimination soient bien ciblées. Le Québec a la condition sociale comme un élément de discrimination et ça va bien. Il n'y a rien de terrible qui se passe au Québec. Ça permet à la commission de faire des études et de faire de l'éducation populaire. Et je pense que ça serait un des enjeux qui pourrait aider beaucoup, surtout dans un contexte comme l'association Anti-Poverty a décrit comment l'accroissement de la pauvreté fait en sorte que de plus en plus les préjugés à l'égard des gens pauvres peuvent s'accroître et minimiser la capacité de répondre à ce problème-là. Évidemment, on voudrait éliminer la pauvreté, mais dans la mesure où il y en aura, ça nous prend un régime fort d'antidiscrimination.
Dernière question sur les tests génétiques. Donc, oui. Est-ce que c'est quelque chose qu'on voit de plus en plus?
Oui, l'expérience de la communauté juive à cet égard est assez est bien comprise et ce sont eux qui m'ont approché pour ajouter ça dans mon projet de loi. Alors, pour la communauté juive, il y a certains traits génétiques qui sont identifiés qui peuvent prédisposer à un certain type de cancer. Alors, ils sont encouragés à prendre le test, mais ont très peur et se sont fait dire à l'occasion par certains médecins, bien, faites attention parce que si, de fait, le test est positif, votre assurance vie pourrait être changée. Vous pourriez être refusé de l'assurance vie ou encore vous pourriez avoir à le dire à un employeur futur. Et donc, ça crée un dilemme qui est inapproprié. Je pense qu'on veut que les gens aient accès aux services de santé qui sont la détection génétique sans se préoccuper de quel impact de discrimination ils vont pouvoir subir. Merci. Merci beaucoup.